Jonah, how you doing today?
I'm doing okay. How are you?
I'm doing well. We have a question. It's always the first question we ask every guest on the show. It gets us started. We come in hot, and we ask each one of our guests, when was the last time that you found yourself worried about covering your monthly expenses?
Ooh, um, you know what? It was, I'd say a year and a half ago or
Mm,
so. I've been doing okay, but that's because my wife and I split and we sold our house.
mm,
And so I have had some cushion. But there was a good, couple of years before that, few years before that, where it was a bit of a struggle or a little bit, it's a stress. I always have a stress. Even if I have money in the bank that lasts me a bit, I still am going like, but what if? What if something happens and then it's all gone and then I don't know how I'm going to pay for anything?
Yeah, this is low key also a divorce podcast.
divorce
So,
pod.
I'm sure.
uh,
Divorce
My
pod.
wife, my ex-wife and I, like, we like, we text each other every time we hear about another couple we know getting divorced, and it seems to be, on average, every couple of weeks. It's just like he's like, guess what? Another one. You know?
Sweeping the nation. Divorce.
Yeah.
well, economic hardship can kind of work both ways. I believe I'm not sure what the data is. I know people who stay together for economic reasons, but I also know people who the stress of it pushes them apart. So
Yeah.
it would be interesting to know the data out there. But you mentioned that you've mostly felt secure recently because the sale of the house, which just a reminder that having assets, long-term assets, is really helpful for creative if you can swing it. What about before then? You said you did worry before, but you've had gigs that people would recognize you from.
Yeah, yeah. It was, I want to say, because that downturn was like around early 2020. I was doing kind of conventions, cons and stuff like that, and I was going and doing stand up on the road, and that was kind of keeping me afloat because I was living inside my money. My house was where all my money went,
Hmm.
and it's like you have to spend that money to keep it standing and keep it so the roof isn't leaking and all that stuff. But it was this time where I was kind of getting burnt out on stand up, on touring, on being gone. And then I kind of made a like soft decision not to do it anymore. And then because I didn't have any income really, and then the pandemic hit, and then there was no income, and then that's the section where it kind of started getting a little dicey for me. It's the strikes, of course, compounded that. I'm sure that's like what people say all the time. But it really was this time where like there was no work to be had, and I wasn't really working, and it just kind of you start eating away at your savings, and it's like I don't think I ever got too destitute, but I did start to kind of ask around with friends. I was like, hey, is there anything I can do? And I would pick up little gigs here and there, and that's kind of how it's felt since the pandemics and the strikes. It's felt like I'm back in my early 20s, just spinning plates. Like I'll get a little money from here, a little money from there. Like it's all stuff that I have worked for to do, but it's nothing. There's no big windfall stuff like I had before because I had like a insane few years where I had like three in
Mm.
1 year. I had like three TV shows. I had like a
Hmm.
Mystery Science Theater on Netflix. I had Hidden America on CISO, and I had The Meltdown.
CISO. Shout out to
Yeah,
CISO.
shout out to CISO. Um, Rest in obscurity. Um, and then I had the Comedy Central show with Kumail. And it's like I was working so much, and I remember Kurt Braunohler once going, he's like, "This insane. You have three TV shows," and and I don't know why. I don't know if this is my own, weird self-esteem issues or whatnot, but like I responded to him by going, "Yeah, but next year I might have none."
Mm.
And
Hmm.
I just want to say, words make a difference. Don't manifest that stuff for yourself.
So you you were talking about things starting to get particularly hard during the pandemic, as it did for a lot of people. But had by the time the pandemic was in full swing, like you said, you were on Mystery Science Theater, very high profile role, the host of that show. Had that already ended by the time the pandemic started?
Yeah,
You was
we
still
had
doing
by the time
cons
the
and stuff.
pandemic started, like we were done with our Netflix. We had been dropped by Netflix. Maybe in 2021, later 2021, like it's like we crowdfunded a independent season. Um,
A whole
but
season.
yeah, a whole season, and like it's like we made a lot of money. Like the show made a lot of money, but like we spent the money on the show.
Right.
Right.
We weren't paid, the same. We weren't. It was just kind of this labor of love that we did for that third season that just was kind of on its own platform. And and it was expensive because it was done during pandemic, so it's like there was all the regulations that we had to abide by, and yeah, so it's like there was that, but like that was like just one of those things where the way you get paid is just smaller and smaller, and you just kind of go, I'd rather work than not work. So I'd rather work on that show than and get paid not much. And that's kind of the thing. It's like even my agents and managers were like when I was first making the deals before even Netflix was picking up the show. It was like it was still like we were crowdfunding that initial season when it was first coming back. It's my agents and managers were like, "Don't. It's a bad deal. Don't take it." I was like, "This is like my childhood favorite show. I'm gonna do it no
Mm.
matter
Yeah.
what."
When I was doing well enough to have someone help me manage stuff, I had a similar experience where she came in and looked at my income and, output, whatever, where I was spending my time. And she identified the science fiction podcast that I do as being a very low, return on investment in terms of how much time I put into it and how much money we get back as a tiny, hobby podcast. And I just couldn't do it. I couldn't not do it. Right.
Yeah,
Because it's important to my sanity. It's, my co-host and we started out as friends, and now we're incredibly close friends, and having a conversation with him every week is a highlight and very sanity keeping. And also it reminds me, both because I get to have a smart conversation with another smart person, and we talk about this genre that I love, it reminds me about why I do what I do. That I'm incredibly lucky to be able to have made any kind of career by, dealing with words. Like words
yeah,
and ideas are the thing that I get to mess around with all day.
yeah.
So that's really energy giving. It's an
Yeah, I
important part
think
of it
so.
for you, I assume.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that like made me the least money, I probably lost money on it, was one of the most fulfilling things was at a podcast with two of my best friends called Jonah Radio. It was like a music podcast, and it was like our poker night. Like we'd get together, we'd have drinks, we'd play music that people submitted, we'd have our friends on, and talk about music and make music jokes, and it was great. It was something that I like, not a lot of people listened to it. We never really got any income off of it, but like the people who listened to it really liked it. And we stopped doing it, and that is something that I've been thinking about lately. It's like the stuff we're doing for joy, and I don't think I realized how much it was filling my cup. We stopped it abruptly because one of the hosts on it, Neil Mahoney, like died suddenly,
Oh my
Mm.
gosh.
and so we like it was this thing where that I don't know that like truly that happened in January of 2021, and it is something that still is kind of I like it's like I was with him a day or so before. I'm the one who found him.
Mm.
um I like it's like and this he always kind of represented, he was like my first friend in comedy, and so he always kind of represented the friendship side of doing stuff just for the fun of doing it. You're like it's
Mm.
like we reminded each other of the way we were when we were kids. We didn't meet till we were out here, but like it's like we reminded each other of like it's like, oh, getting a camera and making something with your friends and doing stuff with your friends. And having not done that since, like it's like I'm now kind of looking back at my last few years and kind of realizing it's like, oh, the absence of something just for me
Hmm.
is very detrimental to my mental health. It's like if you're not just doing something for the sake of doing something, if you're trying to do something just to try and make money, um, it's not good. I remember I always used to say, my mantra was always make stuff, not money. Because if you
Mm,
like really, put yourself in a position where you're just making stuff you like, hopefully the money will come. But if it doesn't, you still made stuff you like. So,
hard to pay rent with it though. Like
hard to
that's the
pay rent.
problem.
Yeah, I come from like, I grew up listening to punk rock and listening to hardcore and a lot of underground stuff. And I don't ever feel that I was owed anything.
Mm.
I don't feel nothing was guaranteed. The fact that I've gotten to get away with it as much as I have is something that means a lot to me. But if it goes away, it's not going to stop me from doing it. Um, I was lucky. I was very lucky, and I have great timing with when I came into the comedy scene and like what I was able to achieve. But it's none of it was owed to me. So it's like if it goes away, it's okay. It just flows through.
It sort of reminded me of like when I've reflected on my career, right? Like I took what used to bring me joy, making listening to rap music, rapping, hip hop, the whole world of it, and have been able to make a life out of that in a way that my younger self would have been absolutely amazed by. But I do think that when I reflect on it, part of the cost of that is that I don't experience that same joy that I used to when I hear a new song. It is so tied into how I make a living in terms of my nervous system response to hearing new
Yeah.
music now. That like when if I like the song, I'm like, who did this? What label are they on? How did this get to me? And like all of these thoughts that end up in front of my enjoyment. Um, and obviously a lot of your projects start from a place of joy. Mystery Science Theater 3000,
Yeah.
Nerd Melt. That's another thing you're doing with your friends in this comedy club that's full of joy. um, these television experiences, have they affected the joy that you get out of comedy over the time that you've had these experiences in Hollywood, especially?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and be altruistic and say that I'm not like petty or jealous of, other guys. Like you see somebody and you kind of go like, it's like, well, why him, not me? That kind of stuff. But also I think when you do this stuff long enough, you realize like how much success is insanely random,
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
and how it's like oh, why him not me? I don't know, he was there that day that someone was looking for that. It's like they just happen to be at the it's like right place, right time. And like I have felt like I remember like I think during like my low point around the pandemic, around like right before, right after, I was getting so burnt out on comedy that I started kind of being negative towards it. I remember some people were talking about like what movie had just come out, Palm Springs, which I think is a
Hmm.
brilliant movie. But I was just like, I don't know. Like I remember when Sandberg showed up in the scene, like you kind of do that thing, and it's just jealousy. And jealousy is such a thief from joy and being able to enjoy the things that you like. And I started to resent comedy and my place in it for taking away that joy. So I've made a concerted effort to really just like enjoy things as much as I can, and not overthink it. It's like it's if I was like a super jealous person, I'd be like, it's like Tim Robinson, like yeah, okay, yeah, the show's good, though, like but now I just get to enjoy it. I think Detroiters is one of the most magnificent pieces of comedy in the past 20 years.
Absolutely.
And I think it's fun to be able to say that stuff, and I think it really reminds you of where you want to be and what you want to do.
There's a shift there that I've read other people talk about that I practice putting into place myself imperfectly, but I practice, which is one thing to do when I get caught in the compare and despair situation, is to compare and think of it as this person is achieving you know, a level of success, or sometimes I want to frame it just as public attention because who knows what success is, right? And they're achieving something that I feel like I want, you know. But when I look at the points of what we are doing that's similar, doesn't that mean that what I'm doing might also be something that people want, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's been really helpful to me in book publishing because apparently that's how book publishing kind of works. When the people are buying books, they're not, you as artists and creators, we think new and different is good. We want to do something unique and that, you know, says something that no one else has said before. But the way that book publishers look at things is like, is this book like another book that's been a bestseller?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that has helped change the way I think about my own work. So rather than, oh, that person is doing what I'm doing and they got success and I didn't, maybe what I can reframe it as is that person is doing something similar to what I'm doing. And that means there's a hunger for it. That means that people want more of this. And that's been helpful also. Yeah. Like, maybe this is something y'all already do, but it's helpful to me is when I can take a step back and think, what is it that I'm responding to in this piece of art or this piece of writing that is the thing that's making me jealous? Is that a craft piece? Mm-hmm. Is that like a thing that I also do? And maybe I do it better. But is it what is the piece that's making me think that's the basis of comparison, right? And it's hard sometimes because sometimes it's like, oh, I could do that better. Or I mean, I could improve. Yeah. But it helps get me somewhere that's not just like that fucking like loser. I do that. I'm doing that same thing. I did it first, or I do it better, or they don't deserve it, or whatever. I mean, it just helps.
Yeah, you know, I'm you know, years and years ago, like, you know, it was like 2 or 3 years where like SNL was asking for, you know, audition tapes from me, showcases from me. And I was always just going like, what is going on? Why can't I get on the show? This would be the dream to be on the show. Once you get on that show, then that's when everything starts to happen. And as I've gotten older and you kind of see how the show works and the mechanics of the show, like, it's like, I realized like when I was auditioning, there was no spot for me because it's a ensemble cast that's being looked at. So that's like one thing. And then you want to also tell yourself, you're like, yeah, but what if I was so brilliant that I superseded that? It's like there's no spot for them, but we're gonna put them in. But then as you also get older and you like see and you start to know people that have worked on the show or you know gotten close to being on the show, you realize it's like that's also still not a guarantee. Being on SNL doesn't guarantee you will become the most famous person in the world. It doesn't.
And some people are miserable on SNL too. Isn't that kind of notorious?
Yeah, I mean it's a hard job. I mean, I think any comedy job is hard. It's like you know, being forced to be funny every week is just tough. I mean, I'm not saying it's like coal mining, but it melts your brain, and you know, you're just trying so hard to get stuff on, and it's a tough job. It's especially like having it be weekly and so long. It's like no comedy show should be as long as that. I don't think no comedy show should be longer than a half an hour. You got this 90-minute show, you know, with all these sets and stuff like that. So, but I truly think that there's this this thing where you kind of go like, it's like, I think I have this theory that all art has to exist for like in any capacity for art to be raised up. You know, it's like there needs to be the people that are shitty at the open mic because someone goes and watches the open mic and sees it's like, well, I can do that. And then they happen to be like maybe not a little better, but just like kind of more driven than the other people at the open mic. And then that kind of raises up. And, you know, you need to like, it's like, there's a book called Our Band Could Be Your Life about, you know, the wave of underground that led to Nirvana. But it's like the, you know, idea is that all of that had to exist for Nirvana to just be popped up over into the mainstream. And if it wasn't for Sonic Youth or the Pixies or Dinosaur Jr., it's like as you kind of make your way down to, you know, Black Flag and Minor Threat and stuff like that, and Minutemen, it's like you needed all that groundwork to do it. So it all needs to exist. So sometimes I have this feeling that I try to have. It's like I was like, I won't be a ultra famous person, but maybe my spot was like, maybe my spot in this world of art helps somebody else that I admire get up to the, I'm very proud the fact that I was like on a show with Kumail, and then Kumail is now like a superstar. That makes me very proud. Did I have anything to do with it? No, but I was there and I was a part of it. And that makes me feel with so much pride for my friend and someone I'm a fan of.
You know, this craft, the craft piece of this has me sort of reflecting on how I deal with that piece, that sort of professional jealousy piece. Um, and I've been really thinking about what you said too about you know analyzing it and wondering if, oh, I see what that person is doing. Do I do that? Do I do that as well? Is that something I should think about? Then I find myself getting, and I kind of want to throw this back to y'all too to see if there's something that you deal with. Um, Usually I feel like my best creative work comes when I have a clear view on whatever North Star I'm headed to with my own creativity or whatever. What I find is when I think about that craft part too much as somebody else's craft, and suddenly there's like this other voice in my head in my creativity where like, am I doing the thing? Like, and it seems to me to be, even though that it could produce an interesting result because it takes me a little bit out of my comfort zone, I get worried that it's taking me away from the North Star.
Mm-hmm.
And all that internal conversation, I feel like makes my stuff worse. But I'm just curious how y'all chew on that, or if that comes up when you think about these things.
Man.
Jonah, you're the guest, so why don't you first?
I mean, every time I've tried to do it's someone else's thing. Well, so I guess I always think about this. It's like the Beatles were trying to sound like Chuck Berry, but they messed up and they sounded like the Beatles. The Beastie Boys, well, they were trying to sound like Minor Threat, but then they wanted to sound like, Run DMC, and then they messed up and sounded like the Beastie Boys. Like there was this thing where I think like there's been times where I see someone doing something and you kind of go, oh, that's possible. Let me try that. And it won't be a ripoff. It'll just be your version of it. But it is neat to see someone kind of open up another space in my head of what's possible. But like, I know like the idea of like, it's like, if I'm going to try and do this, it's like I don't think you're ever going to mess it up. I think it's just going to kind of, make you kind of wiggle around, and you're still going to be going towards your North Star, but you're going to like find little, side routes and stuff that you wouldn't have found along the way. That makes sense.
I think my thought is really akin to what Jonah said, perhaps, coming from a slightly different place as a person who's may not put his writing, which is my younger self, who was a little more free from the voices in the head. Mm-hmm. I loved Hunter S. Thompson so much. I love Lester Bangs so much. And then also Joan Didion, which is a weird trio. But I'm also like, I'm literally, I have bipolar disorder. So I think sometimes that makes sense of my whole life. Extremes. But Hunter S. Thompson was my first political love, political journalist love. And I wanted to write like him so bad. But of course, I was like a teenager living in Nebraska. So I wasn't like doing a lot of drugs or seeing very much that like would lend itself to gonzo. But I tried to write that way and it didn't quite work. I kind of tried to write like Joan Didion and it didn't quite work, but I was so aware that I was at the beginning of things. I think I had more patience with myself, if that makes sense. That's why teenagers make such good punk rockers, right? Because they're just trying to do it and they know that they are not very good. So like, and I think somewhere along the way, I stumbled into what I now recognize as my own voice. But today, what I struggle with but try to practice is knowing that I'm still doing that. I'm still kind of finding these writers that I love. Although I don't know if I'll ever love anyone as much as I loved Hunter S. Thompson and Joan Didion, to be honest. Like, There are a lot of writers out there that I admire. But when I think, and also now that I'm up doing like video stuff, like I have these video essayists that I really admire. And I want to do videos like they do videos.
Mm.
And I've done a couple, and I'm just having to be patient with myself and say, like, yes, I failed to do the exact kind of pace and voice and shape that the person I'm, aiming for did. But this is part of the way I get to whatever it is my style is.
Yeah.
Like because I don't even know what my style is. The video stuff has been really good way for me to get back to that beginner's mind in a way.
Yeah.
Like,
The thing I've done that I'm like probably most proud of, and is the closest to me, is the least seen thing. It was a
Mm.
show, the CISO show I did called Hidden America, and it was a travel show parody. But it was like I was always trying to figure out what my like Mr. Show with Bob and David would be. Like,
oh,
what's my sketch show that kind of interconnects and has this whole thing? And I was also, of course, just obsessed with Anthony Bourdain, and like I was always kind of going like, oh, there's something there with a travel show, but it's also a sketch show, and you have this kind of wandering straight man kind of connecting the whole thing in this, a parody. And then it wasn't until like I was on a plane and I saw an Alan Partridge special, which is Stephen Coogan's character from England, Alan Partridge, and it was called Places of My Life, and it was this thing I saw where I was like, there, that's it. That's like that was the missing little piece of the thing that I like had in my head, but I needed to see it in this kind of different way for me to start to use that. Like it's like I had my North Star. I had my idea for some kind of weird sketch show, some kind of parody show, and then I saw that those three things kind of made me go towards it. And I think that's like a very important. I think too, it's like even like now it's I'm like starting to like do more stand up. I started a weekly show, but like it's like I'm seeing people like Chris Fleming, who I watch Chris Fleming perform, who's just so brilliant. And so I go, how do you even do that?
Mm.
Like I don't even know where they're coming from with the performance and with the bits and like the jokes and like how it swirls around, and it makes me kind of go. I remember like being so like jealous and very like big fans of like Rory Scovel. I think is so brilliant because it's like it's this
Yeah.
guy that like just lets himself meander on stage, and like he has all these silences. I go, why don't I let myself have these silences? I can have those silences if I need to find my way around. I think constantly being inspired by what's coming, what's around you and coming after you is like it's a very important thing in my head.
You mentioned earlier watching like Tim Robinson, you're like, this is the sort of thing that reminds me what I want to do and where I want to be. So, given all these experiences you've had, and that you were able to make something that you feel like kind of, did feel like your North Star, where do you want to be now? Like, what do you want to make now? Like, is there a different sort of North Star now?
It's funny you asked that, Mike, because it's like not to dredge it back over there, but like kind of since my friend Neil died, and then the strikes and stuff like that, I've kind of felt really just creatively just like empty.
Mm.
I feel like I used to have ideas all the time. When I was working on all those shows, it's like we did 3 seasons of Meltdown, 2 seasons of Hidden America, 2 or 3 seasons of Mr. Science Theater. Like I was like, putting all my all into all these things. And like afterwards, I really thought that's like that time in, a comedian's life where you make all this stuff yourself. I remember my managers and agents like, you need to just kind of self make all your stuff and then we can get the ball rolling. You just need some heat. And so I made all those shows. And at the end of it, I kind of was like, I did it, guys. Like I did what you asked.
mm-hmm.
And they're like, well, what are you going to do next? And I was like, no, this is when you start plugging me into an Apatow, or I get like a side character thing that shows up every couple of weeks on a sitcom. It's like, you just kind of like fit me in there. And then like, I can have some time to come up with my next, personal thing, but I'm still working. And it was just this kind of drop off.
Mm.
And so it's like, I really kind of felt, like, it was all for naught, but I was like also like I felt bad for feeling bad, which is always the worst. It's like
Mm-hmm.
like I was like couldn't be happy with the success I had because it didn't lead anywhere, whatever. It's like, I remember my dad once, like he was like in town and I was working on all those shows. He was like, can you get lunch? I was like, I'm really busy with all this different stuff. And he goes, well, hey, hopefully it works out. And I was like, motherfucker, it's working out right now. It's like, this is it working out. And like, this is like what I've been working towards. And then for it to kind of go away, it's like, I feel like I haven't been able to come up with anything or feel the energy to have it.
Yeah.
And, I don't know if it was just because this guy, Neil, who was like a part of my creative life since I started doing stand-up, like I met him like within the first month of doing stand-up, and we had been, best buds and sometimes collaborators for, until he died. And so what I've done now to try, like, it's like, I realize it's like, you can't start creating from a place of stillness. It's like, you need to be in motion. You need to kind of, and so like a big thing is I started doing this weekly stand-up show with the idea of it being a tiny little cog, like that will push larger cogs. So it's like, I have this thing that I forced myself into to start turning this little cog, and then I'll start and it's happening. It's being as designed. I'm starting to think of more ideas. And I don't know what those ideas are going to be. Some of them are like movie ideas. Some of them are book ideas, but like right now there's no next big thing, but that's why I started that show as a way to kind of start greasing the wheels and pushing everything forward. Cause I feel like I have to be in motion for anything else to work in my life.
I was talking to our producer Andrew about the scene around Nerd Melt and the Nerdist Theater, and how and I think about that now. That was such a different sort of hub for comedy than the Comedy Store or
Yeah.
These other places. It might have been a little more alt, but when I went in there, I felt like, oh, I could do stuff here, and that was very important. And I wonder, well, I'll just say for me, especially in LA as a creative, it seems to me to be that scenes, or, people getting together around specific shows or specific creative intentions. It has a lot to do with my sense of how much I feel like I'm part of a community.
Yes. I think that's the thing that I lost too. Like when you're not in a community, it's like, you feel empty, right?
Right. And is your weekly, is it an attempt to sort of start to build something like that back too, or is that part of the intention of doing your
Yeah,
show?
I mean that's the thing. I don't think I can. When you're doing comedy all the time and then you stop, you realize how much you're like. Oh, I don't have as many like friends as I see as I thought.
Right.
You kind of like you're like, oh, where's all my coworkers? Where's all the people I really like? Just having a few conversations with. So me and Ian Carmel don't like hang out, but like
No.
I like running into the dude, and
Right.
talking with
Right.
him. And yeah, I felt a huge absence. And with this new show, I'd love for it to be like that. It's going to be really hard for me not to compare it to the Meltdown, which was such a fluke with how it just became what it was. I'm really proud of it, and I would of course like it to happen again with that just sense of community. And I mean, here's a really, we've only done so far. Tonight we're doing our fourth show.
Nice.
First show was sold out. There was a little bit of a drop, but like there's been this girl that's come to the last two shows. And her mom drives her up from Temecula. She's 15 because it's an all evening show.
Temecula.
Yeah. And her
Wow.
mom drives her from Temecula, like rush hour traffic. She came to the second show because Steve Agee was there, and she was like, she didn't know anything about comedy. She just liked Steve Agee from Peacemaker. So she's there, like so excited. And I'm like talking to her from the audience, and she's like, oh, I'm 15. Like, I was like, well, this is great. And of course, it's like, there was a lot of like, gross material, and I felt bad for her mom sitting there with her, but not for me, but from other comics. And then like the next week she showed back up with her mom, and she had made like a little button, like a pin of the flyer for the show. She's like, I want to give this to you. And then she told me, she's like, oh, my parents are going through a divorce right now, and I don't feel like I have a lot of friends back home, but this feels like a little bit of a community. And I almost started crying. And I was like, and I was like, that's crazy. Like that. She's already kind of feeling like she's a bit of a part of something because of the 2 weeks of me just going like, hey, Penelope's here, everybody. Hey. And everyone's like, yeah, Penelope, keep coming back, And that stuff is really important and fun. Like it's like, and I do think that's something that I hope to, keep going. So that's kind
That's
of
a
it.
good reminder to me of another thing I think a lot of creatives have. I mean, maybe I should speak for myself, and then also some of the people that have been on the show. But that's a little self-selecting because it's all like friends of friends of friends. So maybe there are people out there who don't feel this way. But I think I and other creatives I know have trouble contextualizing our work in the world. We immediately discount it after it's out there, even if it gets praise. It's like, okay, well, I did that. That's cool. People like it. Yay. Now I need to do the next thing. Now I'm only good as the thing that I'm only as good as not even the next thing the thing I've done, last thing I've done. To me, sometimes I feel like I'm only as good as the next thing that I do.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
But what what happens for me, and I bet it happens for both of you. In fact, what happened just now, what you described as an example, is someone comes and says, you are doing something that's really important to me. And not just really important to me, but you seem to be doing something in general that inspires me. Like from the outside, I see you as successful. I see you as continuously producing good work. I see you as a member of the group of people that when I hear my name in conjunction with them, I'm like, you're seeing me. Like someone mentioned me and Ta-Nehisi Coates in the same breath today,
ah,
and I was like, no.
yeah,
Allow me to tell you you're wrong.
yeah, yeah. Oh, that's the worst when you tell someone they're wrong. Like you're really great. It's like, all right.
I didn't. I just let it lie. But it was like I'll tell you, someone like put on Blue Sky, like the best writers of our generation, of the Generation X, are weighing in on Minneapolis. Ta-Nehisi Coates and Anna Marie Cox. And I was like, well, half right, I guess.
Some guy I followed some comic from New York. He's a younger guy, and he messaged me back. He's like, "Oh my god, hey man, big fan of you since the Effin' Funny show." And it was like Effin' Funny was like some YouTube, they would just tape stand up and put it on, and it was like really early on, and I didn't know they were taping it. I didn't know what was going on. I was like so mortified by that set because I was working on stuff. And so I told the guy, I was like, "Oh, that was a really bad set. I'm sorry." And the guy's like, "Well, it helped me and my friends get inspired to go and do comedy." And I was like, maybe I should shut the fuck up.
Well, I was gonna ask. I was gonna ask you. Maybe that's your story, but I wondered if you have other experiences where something someone has said has forced you to recontextualize your own success or your own place in the world that you aspire to.
It's to name drop end quote.
Well, I did Ta-Nehisi Coates, so y'all are like you're free to just do whoever now.
Well, like it's like well, no, I don't want to. But like it's like someone who's doing really well. Like we did like a Meltdown reunion show at Largo, and and I did well, like during my set, and I came off stage, and she was like, "Oh, great set, that was so good." And I was like, "Ah," and then she was like, "I think your ears have low self-esteem."
Mm.
And I was like, "Wow, I never really would have thought of it that way." Like, just going like I can't even take it in. Even like when there's like a good set and it's like feels good, I was like, meh, sure, could have been better. Telling someone why they're wrong, why they like you is a terrible thing I think I've done over the years.
I was gonna say, Mike, your turn. Like, do you have an experience where someone said something to you and you were forced to think, okay, maybe I'm wrong about the way that I see myself in this world?
So, I mean, it makes me think about a few things, and some of it is on target with what we're talking about, and some of it's not. Okay, so I put out that album last year. It got a bunch of praise, like way more
Oh
than
my
I would have
God.
expected,
So
right?
top,
Yeah,
top,
like
whatever list. And
so many, like next to like so many big, huge, big budget artists that are known by everybody, and all these writers, they can do whatever the hell they want. These editors, they can do it. There's no incentive for them to put my project on those lists if they didn't like it. So that's one of those things that makes me be like, okay, well, shit. All right, maybe I am doing something. But then on the other side, like there was somebody who tweeted about me yesterday with a bunch of other like really notable, beloved independent rappers on Twitter. Like they said, "Oh, these are the best," and they listed all of these guys. A lot of them are bigger than me, and they put my name in there. And then like some of the few comments were people being like, "Open Mike Eagle doesn't belong in there."
Oh no!
Jesus,
Like
I'm
that is
like,
the opposite story of the one that I was asking
I know,
for.
but it makes me think of that. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's like, oh, I was feeling good, and then somebody had to go and say some bullshit.
Yeah,
and,
I mean,
and
when
it
I was,
sort of it sort of
yeah.
puts you back in that cycle, you know?
Yeah, when I was announced as the new host of Mystery Science Theater, which is like a show that I was obsessed with as a kid, I couldn't believe, how I got to be a part of it. But it wasn't just because I came out of nowhere. I had been working pretty steadily for years at that point and writing on shows and doing stand-up and whatnot. But like, I all of a sudden got these guys, coming into my feed saying, "You're going to mess up my favorite show. You're going to ruin Mystery Science Theater." And I'd be like, why would I do that? I love the show. I'm going to do my best within the mechanisms that, I have, I'm able to control, like my performance and my, my jokes. But like, it's like a bunch of people saying like, it's like, I messed it up. It's like a terrible feeling. Mm-hmm. It's an awful feeling. And then those are always kind of in your head. They're in the audience. They're online. Every post, like, it's like you go, there's someone going like, or they're showing their friends, or it's like, even like just the idea of someone like going like, look at this guy thinks he's okay to do this, put himself out there. How dare.
But imagine the number of people who are neutral on you. That's another.
Yeah, I know. There's a bunch of like,
but there are some haters. But just imagine the vast majority of people who just like think I'm fine.
Yeah. It's the people like, because here's the thing. I think about this a lot. I go to a great restaurant. I go, wow, what a great restaurant. I might tell my friend to go to this restaurant. I have a bad experience at a restaurant. I go, I'm going to get on their Yelp and fuck them up. It's like, I don't know what the difference, like the feeling. It's like, I want to, the anger is such a like it propels you to like do something bad. Like but like if you have a good experience, you're just like, that was nice. And then you move on with your day.
You just described the American political scene as well.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I know, exactly. Make them angry.
Which is like, there's no science about that too, which is that there is much more, our caveman brains react more to negative feelings than positive feelings because that's protective.
Yeah,
right.
It's what we remember. I think it's like, me and my friend used to have a lot of conversations about like, our dads being crappy or something like that. And like, and then we would kind of keep on, hanging out and telling stories. We were shooting something. So we had a lot of time just talk. And then like, I realized all of our conversations were like all these great stories about our dads. But like, when we had to, like, it's like, and he brought that up. It's like you tend to remember these terrible things like that happened to you, or the terrible things that could happen, because it's a way to protect yourself. You're like, that's not going to happen to me again. And then you kind of like you put it on an entire, like you put a patina on the entire experience.
I'm going to bring this back to the thing that we do want to talk about on the show, as much as this is also low key divorce and low-key therapy show, which is money. And I think it dovetails into this conversation because for me, a lot of that negative self-talk was not eliminated by when I had financial security, but it sure turned the volume down.
Oh, yeah. Money's great. Money is absolutely great. Everyone, let's be honest. It's like not all the money. No, I don't want to have all the money. I was just like, but like every time I have money, like it's like, it's feeling a little weird. I'm gonna go get a record. That'll make me feel good. Money can do that for me. Am I buying happiness? Sure. And I'll listen to it. I'll have it on the shelf. It's not permanent, but neither is a good drink or neither is a meal. It doesn't take away the things that you can do. But I know this is, listen, I want to eat the rich. But it's like when people go like, well, money isn't everything. You're like, it's not. But in the situation that's been set up for us in society, it's a pretty large portion of it. And I do like it when I have it. And maybe that's why. Maybe I like it so much is why I don't have it all the time.
Well, I think Well, I have a few thoughts. One is something that Mike and I at least have in common, and we've, I think, found it with other guests, is the fact that at the age we are at, and having been doing this a while, I had a fairly long period in my career where I didn't have to worry. Jobs would come, jobs happened. Just, I was in that place where I never was very long without a job. I thought that I was just, that's what my life was going to be like for the rest of my career. That
Yep.
I was, it's not that I want to be very clear. It's not that I thought I was like invincible or that like I was going to be super, super successful, but I thought I'd just reach this kind of like base level of like, all right, like I'm a known quantity, like stability. I thought I'd reach stability. And then that completely crumbled. But what I regret about that was I did not I did not plan very well.
Yes.
Like I that habit of I don't feel great, so I'm going to go buy a little treat was hard to stop when the money stopped, even when the money stopped.
Well, because you've now
Right.
conditioned yourself. You're like, wow, I'm feeling a little weird all the time. Oh no, I've been going buying stuff every day. I've been ordering Postmates all the time.
I don't feel great. I don't want to cook. Oh, I guess, like I need to eat, so
Yeah.
I'll order Postmates.
It's a very good point. I mean, I'm not great with money. I find sometimes when I am on a job, I was working at entertainment years ago, and I got like kind of roped into like producing on these countdown shows, E's 50 most insane celebrity oops, or the international sexy lady show. Just like you're working on these packages and you're putting the jokes together and stuff like that, and it's a terrible form of entertainment, but you kind of like you convince yourself, you're like, well, I'm still providing entertainment for somebody, this is helping somebody out. But I remember like making the most money I'd ever made, like working on these shows that were just destroying me. And I remember i I hated the money coming from them so much that was like the most flippant. That's the most time I bought the most records I'd ever had in my life. It's like I didn't respect the money. I didn't respect the money
Mm,
because I didn't respect the job, and I just wanted it out of my life. I wanted to
mm-hmm.
like try and turn this negative experience of this job that I should be happy for into something that I actually kind of like. And it's like, I would take friends out to dinner. I was like paying tabs,
Hmm.
for bar tabs, and I was like, let me get this, let me get this meal, and I don't regret any of it. You know, like should I have like been squirreling that away? Yeah, maybe, but I don't know. I'm not that guy. Maybe I'm not as well off as some people who would have done it, but I've had a lot more fun.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm scared
So,
all the time, and I don't think that's ever going to go away.
hmm. So we have a quick bonus segment we're going to ask you. This is a question. It won't be part of the main episode. It'll just be up on our Patreon as part of the pod. Um,
Real quick question though, guys.
sure.
Do you find this doing this podcast makes you feel better or worse?
I'll say that most of the time it makes me feel better. There have been a couple of things that have made me feel worse, but it's only because um, we'll have a conversation where somebody says something that sort of like it informs me of some deep seated belief I have that makes me uncomfortable with myself.
Hmm.
But aside from that, the sense of community that it makes in terms of I think what the inherent brilliance of the idea of this, which was Anna's idea, was that I have been feeling isolated
Yeah.
in the difficulty of the economic truth of my life, especially after
Mm-hmm.
divorce and pandemic and all of that, and having television shows and all of that going away. Um, it's been terribly isolating. So the feeling that we get having these conversations that we're not struggling with this alone, that there are systemic factors, that it's not a reflection of the quality of my work. All that has been incredibly helpful for
Yeah.
me.
I So during the strikes, I felt the need to kind of post about it because like I saw these people being very negative towards any when supporting the actors or writer strike, saying like, it's like, you know, why are you doing this? You're millionaires, this and that. And like, I looked up my net worth income, and it
I've done
was
that.
like, I was like, I should have $20 million. But I didn't. And so you know, I ended up like grabbing a job as a bartender. I lied to this bar and said like, I was like, heard you need a bartender. They're like, have you done it before? It's like, sure. I had never bartended in my life. I thought it was just beer there. It turns out it was like craft cocktails. I had to
Oh
learn a lot
shit.
really fast. Really fast. I had to learn how to do all stuff. But like, it's like, you know, I made this post about how like, it's like, you know, this is not just an entertainment. This is like, this is the entire working force of the entire country or the world. It's like, you know, people are being paid less and less across the board.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and this is just what like, you know, the current reality is. So it's not just the, you know, the actors, not just the writers. And like, and I was also like posting, I made this post saying like, it's like, I'm also tired of like, you know, having to have this, you know, act like you've been there, or like, it's like, you know, fake it till you make it, or
Mm-hmm.
you know, project the image of success you want to be. I was so tired of that because it's just, it's exhausting, and I was tired of seeing other people do it. And it's, if they want to do it, that's fine. But like, it's like, you know, I made this post, and the amount of people that I thought were doing so much better than me
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
messaging me saying, I've been doing Postmates, I've been doing Uber, I've been doing this to try and make ends meet. I had to do another mortgage on my house, this and that. Like, and I was like, oh, wow. And then, you know, I'm not naming names, but you see them post, they go, it's like on another trip, or like they're still like doing, they're still posting because we think that being successful makes you successful, as opposed to, you know, I guess just like continuing to just like work at the craft. But yeah, it is a thing that made me feel a lot better when I saw other people who were struggling. I guess it's like, you know, a nice cycle of Schadenfreude.
Well, I think, yeah, I kind of have the same answer, although I'll also say that these individual conversations usually help me because, like, I hear you talk about the kind of, you know, emotional struggle that you've had, the feeling like your ideas are not coming, or that it feels scary to be where you are right now. I sound, if I can put words in your mouth, like
No, very, very scared. Always scared. Yeah.
that, like the way we were kind of ending the conversation with you, I almost wanted to jump in and do what is probably like a caretaking impulse of mine that should be, I should work on in therapy, but to point out that you are clearly really good at what you do, and that it is hard right now. And I can't promise it won't be hard, but that ultimately, and you said this earlier, the reason we do what we do is because there is joy in getting to do this stuff, right? And every time I look at my bank account and feel like panic, I try to remember, like, who was it? What was our guest? Colt, that
Colt
said,
Cabana.
Colt Cabana, and he just said this thing that I one of, it, you know, it turns out also he's like been very responsible with his money and is really comfortable. So I thought maybe I wouldn't have any identification with him. But what he said was, we don't get paid in money, we get paid in time, which is to say, like, I do get to sleep until 10 some days, right? And that sort of time. And also, I get to read books because I have to write about them. I get to spend my time doing stuff that other people, like, I get paid to do stuff with my time that other people don't.
Yeah.
They have to separate out. And I remember I was complaining, like, I have this friend who, I will be quite honest, like, she basically was like, I need a break from talking to you.
Wow.
Because she's someone who wants to be a writer. Like, she's working on a novel. And I would go to coffee and be like, oh, this, and like, you know, I'm not getting paid enough. It's only $1 a word. And, you know, God, I sold this story, but whatever. And
Yeah.
she's like, you're a working writer.
Yeah.
You are doing a thing that
That's your
other
occupation.
people sit around and like try and figure out how to do. And like you're a comedian, like you work at this stuff and you
Yeah.
get to, and I'm not trying to say but I want to separate it out from the money. I guess that's one of the things I just want to do. I want
No,
to,
I
for
get to do
everybody,
it.
money is fake. You know, it's not a judgment. We should all go into extensive debt because money isn't real. Like, it's just like, don't worry about it.
Some of the funniest comics
Go.
I ever known, like they aren't doing that great. You know,
Yeah.
it's like there's other comics that are doing better. I don't know. It's so random to me. There's a thing that I thought about, like when I first started, I felt like people were like taking off all around me. And the thing that kind of kept me like to give myself some perspective was it's like say we're climbing this imaginary ladder to, you know, success. We're just going up. But like when we're like climbing a ladder, you're just kind of looking up the whole time and you're seeing all the people around that are like, you know, kind of far past you or way up ahead of you, that maybe somehow kind of got up around you and went like further up. But then like you rarely do you look down and go, oh yeah, there's a lot of people that I know that don't even do it anymore,
Hmm.
or that are still kind of at this like, you know, lower rung professionally. And you kind of like gotta, you know, give yourself a pat on the back for just still showing up and still, you know, being an artist or still trying to make stuff. Because some people just, you know, called it in and just said, I'm done.
The other person that said something that I think about a lot was our very first guest, Paul F.
Oh
Tompkins,
yeah.
who really kind of helped. Like, it was such an amazing thing to have him on, because when we asked what we decided would be our first question about when's the last time you worried about making your monthly expenses, he said, "Does today count?" And I was like, "Okay, this is going to be a good show.
Wow.
This idea for a podcast is a good idea," because someone who I think of, I mean, Mr. Show, like you mentioned earlier, like
Yeah.
formative thing in my life.
Yeah.
And I think of as being, he's such a craftsman at comedy. Like, he's so great.
It's one of my all-time
And
favorites.
to have him say that was both like distressing, because he should be
Yeah.
making $1 million, right?
Hmm.
And if I could wave the magic wand, well, I'd make all of us make $1 million.
Yeah.
Um, but also his honesty about that was amazing. And then the thing he said that was towards the end of the show was, "But I get to do this for a living, and my wife and I, we've decided we'll station 11 it if we have to. If we
Now,
have to pack up we sell our house, pack up everything into a station wagon, and travel from town to town doing comedy." You
I
know?
mean, the idea of
I love
making,
that. It just
yeah,
like, it just, yes,
it's great.
yes.
I always think about this a lot. The notion of any of us being, you know, millionaires from the stuff we do, is a modern concept. It's only within the
Hmm.
past like 100 years or so that like it's like before we would have to go town to town to
Right.
make like, and we want to make a good living. I mean, we were weirdos and we were, you know, freaks, and we were, you know, we were carny folk, as Dana Gould always says. It's like we're carny folk. It's like, but you know, then recorded media showed up and it just kind of changed the game for something that's been around for thousands of years. You know, being an entertainer, being an artist, it's like that changed it, like recorded media. And so it's like to say that we're over for something that's fairly a new concept, you know, that we should have like, you know, stability is just like, you know, get back on the hay bale. We got another show to do down the road.
Thank you so much for coming on, and thank you for your honesty, your candidness about it. And one of the things that Mike and I also talked about when we started the show was, I feel like talking about money and career is the next frontier after we've destigmatized talking about mental health. And it turns out like they're really intertwined as well. So
Yeah.
it's a very intimate and vulnerable thing to come on the show. And so thank you very, very much.
No, I'm very glad you guys are doing this. When I first saw this podcast pop up, I was like, here we go. This is what I want. This is what we've been waiting for.
And since
Because yeah.
this is about how tough it's been for creatives to weather these current economic storms, we also feel like one of the most important things we do as a show is turn the show over to our guests to let people know how they can support you. So if there's anything you want to plug, now is the time.
I guess the only really thing, I have my weekly show. It's Scribble. It doesn't get me any money because all the proceeds go to the venue, which provides sliding scale mental health services for the community of this area of Los Angeles. It's a great venue that does a lot of great stuff in that field. So that's every Tuesday if you're in Los Angeles. If you're not, all episodes of my CISO show, Hidden America with Jonah Ray, are all up on YouTube now, which is great
Nice.
because it's like I'm not making money off of that, but I just love that people can find it now. And so you can go watch that.
Nice. Well, like Anna said, we really appreciate your openness to get into some of this stuff. We know that it's not always comfortable to talk about the dark parts of this. And, I think your story probably has a little bit more lost than people might be aware of. So I'm glad that you were able to put a lot of that stuff out there and put it in context. So we thank you.